When we are discussing our region, the future of our region, also we should take into consideration our neighbors. So now we are moving to Georgia. Mr. Victor Kipiani, please tell us about your vision, how Georgia, how in Georgia is seeing this process. Our projects, Crossroads of Peace, the region, geopolitics, please.
And all this in 10 minutes, yeah? Mr. Melikan, thank you so much for inviting. Thank you to the Rebellion Center. It's been a pleasure. It's been a double pleasure for me since it's first time to be in Armenia. Shame on me, but hopefully this track record would improve. You said the position of Georgia. It's a big honor for me to speak on behalf of Georgia, but I would rather speak on my personal behalf. But at the same time, probably trying to read between the lines of Georgian official policies. It seems to me that Georgian official policies this time, it's not about likes and dislikes in this common world, especially when it comes to such a complex region as the South Caucasus. It's about realignment of interests. And when we speak about realignment of interests, it's about trade-offs. It's not a very nice thing to say about international politics, but that's something which we should acknowledge and recognize as a reality. And when we speak about realignment of interests, I often say that the different scenarios of the world security order. And one of those scenarios, as I mentioned in years of my writings, it's about regional hub and spoke security model, when the regional centers would become even more important and more significant. And from that perspective, bearing in mind the necessity of realignment of interests, and bearing in mind the competitiveness between different gravitational centers, it's really very important for us Armenians, Azerbaijan in the first place, to think about the region as of competitive geopolitical and geoeconomic unity. Especially also bearing in mind that the South Caucasus, unfortunately, regrettably, they still remain the least connected part of the world. In that context, of course, the initiative of the Prime Minister Pashinyan is indeed very significant, very important. If I may draw some analogy with the cross-border projects which have started in the region at the end of the 90s of the last century, it very much reminds me about the trade theory of peace. And then again, getting back to the points of when commerce, business, and pragmatic interests coincide with each other. So it's not necessarily about domestic regimes, it's not necessarily about specifics of international posture, but it's exactly about acting as a single business and commerce unity, as a type of modus operandi in this world. So again, not to confuse myself in the first place and not to confuse the audience, this initiative looks to me exactly falling in line with that analogy and with that logic. Now, Georgia's position on the region, again, from my point of view, it's about equal distance when it comes to Azerbaijani-Armenian conflict. We had on many instances a gesture by Tbilisi to mediate. I have my own personal observations. I think that's when someone proposes to mediate, he or she has to have enough capacity to enforce. So I personally don't believe it's probably quite arguable that we would be capable enough to perform the mediating role to the largest extent possible. But at least, as a minimum, it's a good gesture of it's a gesture of goodwill. Same time, when when we speak about Prime Minister Pashinyan's initiative, we should also remind ourselves and remind the audience about the initiative of the Prime Minister Garibashvili about the Peaceful Neighborhood Initiative. So all those fall on the same frequency. And further on, it's the Georgian quest for the EU candidacy status country. And when we had a meeting yesterday with the Deputy Minister, Mr. Safaryan, I made a point that sometimes it looks to me that we Georgians are not less interested, are not more interested with Georgia getting the candidacy status than Armenians are, because it would have a ripple effect on the region. It would have, it would give Armenia as well, and to the entire region, if I may say, so that we can do it for better connection, for better connect with the outer world, and with European, with EU infiltrating or projecting its soft power in the region in better and more institutionally via Georgia as the country, having hopefully on the 15th of December getting the status of the EU candidacy. And the last point, I want to speak about Georgia. It's really very important when we talk about geopolitics, when we talk about foreign policy. The main strengths of Georgian foreign policy, the main strengths of Georgia's international posture, it's about its own democracy and its own institutions. That's where our resilience comes from. It's not about military power, it's not about money resources, etc., but in the first place, it's the transparency, democracy, and institutional capacity building. That's how we should position ourselves in the region. That's how we should position ourselves to the rest of the world. Few quick points, Mr. Milikian, mindful of time. Of course, when we speak about those positions or regional context, regional implications, we have to raise necessarily a few critical questions, and I'm very much mindful as well that we won't be able to give a precise and full-scale response, full-fledged response to each of them. Russia's role in the region obviously is receding. Russia is very much tied up with Ukraine, and that obviously opens some vacuum in the region for other powers to step in. But that's something we have to watch. At the same time, I completely disregard and do not share the various irresponsible statements as if Russia's role has degraded in the region completely. Russia is and will be having, has and will be having the capacity to have its own say in the region, and this is about the real politics. Don't speak in very, let us not speak in very idealistic terms. As a minimum, Russia would be able to continue the disruptive role in the region. So that's something, which we should look into the light of the truth. It is also about where the West is. And there is quite a certain controversy in that respect. You probably know that Georgia has a very, let's put it in this way, interesting provision in its own constitution, which says that Georgia's institutions are committed to pursue their integration with Euro-Atlantic community, and that's something which is very much firmly on our radars. At the same time, but I've been arguing over the last years, and hopefully many of my competitors would agree that we, as a regional nation, as a regional country, have to pursue two-frequency course. One is pursuing that Euro-Atlantic mainstream integration, but at the same time paying more attention to the neighborhood and to the implications around us. This is very much important, because it seems to me that for some time we had some disconnect from regional implications. We put an excessive emphasis on the Euro-Atlantic community integration, which is, as I'm saying, it's not the choice of the Georgian dream, it's not the choice of any other ruling party, it's the choice of generations of Georgians, therefore it's something which is undisputable, but at the same time, disregarding regional implications and disregarding that two-frequency course of Georgian foreign policy in terms of its mainstream pillar and the regional pillar or neighborhood pillar would be a grave mistake. In the region, we have quite a complex situation with each of three South Caucasus nations pursuing their own pattern of policy. From Georgian perspective, we would continue building up on that capacity of the institutional cooperation which we have with our strategic partner, the United States of America. That capacity would be continued to be built up on the Strategic Partnership Charter from 2009. Definitely, we realized that United States is not a Black Sea power, Black Sea nation, but we're very much we would very much welcome if the West and the US would have a more clear say and more coherent say when it comes to the South Caucasus. Oddly enough, the situation in the South Caucasus, one very interesting feature that we all observe special relations between Azerbaijan and Turkey, the same Shusha Declaration whereby Turkey or NATO via Turkey is already present in South Caucasus. And the complexity and the validity of the situation that the West has special relations with Turkey and for Azerbaijan, same time Armenia, which provides with, say, more transparency in the government and the governing structure, it still continues to be aligned with Russia. This is quite an audited when it comes to the question of the values and the principles. So I think that's we would be expecting some interesting changes in that respect. A few quick points. China, which is always on the radars. It looks like that China continues the business as usual. Trading with both with Armenia, Azerbaijan, also including the arms sales. In terms of Georgia-Russian relations, yesterday I was asked during one of the meetings what the status of those, what the nature of those relations, and I said, those relations are the working relations. Again, probably it comes to the pragmatism and the rationality of Georgian policies. We're definitely aligned with the West in many possible respects, but when it comes to bilateral sanctions, we are holding off with enforcing those sanctions because of the variety of reasons. So, again, the concluding point, and even having this summary of my notes, I wish to say more. The driving factor and the driving reason for Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Georgia, and we already mentioned the competitiveness of the region, is to get rid of toxic connotations about South Caucasus, because when someone speaks about South Caucasus, what immediately comes to anyone's mind are wars, civil strife, domestic conflicts, etc., etc. So probably that would be the rationale behind our policies to transform ourselves into the image of cohesiveness, healthy business environments, and sound domestic and foreign policy as well. so much to say, Mr. American, but I would rather stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kipiani, and I also want to add one moment. You said that when Georgia is proposing mediatorship, it should be equal. What did you mean? Because we know that Georgia-Azerbaijani relations are strategic, and now we are waiting that improvement of Armenia-Georgia relations will be also going deeper. So you mean strategic relationship?
Okay, so I'll expand it during the coffee break, if I may. John, I take a point, so I'll get back to you on this. As for the question which our esteemed colleague has asked, as the first step, I cannot think of any magic approach rather than recommitting ourselves to the basic principles of international law, which is about sovereignty, territorial integrity, inviolability of the borders, and also would be a good reflection, a very tangible reflection, a freeze on disinformation war and hybrid war in the line of course. That would be very important. And then once we have recommitted and we have a dedicated efforts in those respects, I think with 3 freedoms among the 4 freedoms on which the European community was once based, it's a free movement of capital, goods and people, and thinking of practicalities in that respect. So that would be my very brief response, if I may. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Goar Iskandaran.